Welcome, beautiful people of all ages, shapes, and colors, to another episode of the Hit Your Free Throws podcast, where we encourage you to stick to the basics. I'm one of your co-hosts, TV, aka TV on basketball, alongside my co-host Jay, aka the Knockdown Jay. How's it going, my guy?
TV, the NBA Cup popped off to an excellent start. We got some beautiful storylines, and I think might end up having a much more interesting Rookie of the Year race than we kind of anticipated coming into this year. Bro, I'm not gonna lie, bro. First 10 to 12 games of the NBA season have been fire. It makes me feel like even though we have a ton of injuries through the beginning portion of the season, that there's still a lot to like of the
it's
teams we were optimistic about before the year started.
it's never a dull moment in the NBA, man. It never
Nah.
is. And there's a lot to talk about today. Like we mentioned, the first day of the NBA Cup, I don't think it could have gone any better in terms of excitement levels for the NBA Cup after that first day. We have a lot to talk about there. There's a lot of other storylines which we're going to be going into as well. And of course, we have the quiz. Then and we also have the draft. So it's going to be a pretty action packed episode. So make sure you sit back, relax. If you're listening to the pod, turn it up, lean back, and just enjoy. But before we get into those topics, we do have to plug our socials. Remember to follow our individual socials at TV on Basketball, at the Rootdown J Jumpers / the Knockdown J. Those links can be found in the description down below. In terms of the Hit Your Free Throws pod, make sure you follow us for daily NBA content on our TikTok and Instagram. You got clips, you got the power rankings. We have some other content coming from for you over on that page, so be on the lookout for that. In terms of the YouTube, remember to like, share, and subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you will not miss an episode. And if you're listening to us on any of the podcast networks, Spotify or Apple, subscribe, leave a review, all that good stuff. We appreciate all of y'all's support. Jay, are you ready to get into this?
Yeah, man. We had a jam-packed start to the NBA Cup season, and it's shaping out to be something special, bro. I think this is gonna be a good
100%.
one.
It is. We're gonna start off with the NBA Cup because just that one day alone just garnered so many headlines, and we're gonna kind of try and get through each of these pretty quickly. But the first one, Klay Thompson's return to the Golden State. Absolutely fantastic. An amazing tribute video. Everyone in the crowd with the freaking Captain Klay hats waving all around and everything. And honestly, for Warriors fans, it could have gone any better. Amazing tribute. And they were able to pull out a massive win over the defending Western Conference champions behind a 37-point outing for Stephen Curry. Klay Thompson tried his best to really be competitive with his 22 points over there. Luka had 31. Kind of, went on to his Luka tunnel vision mode at the end of that game. But still, really fun game. Jay, just your quick thoughts on Klay's return, the environment and everything, and just the game in general.
Yeah, man, I thought it was everything that we kind of expected in terms of a Klay Thompson return. I mean, they did an excellent tribute for Jordan Poole once upon a time as well, right? So
Yeah.
obviously, you knew Klay Thompson was going to get the full experience. The Captain Klay hats are already kind of going up on eBay for a pretty penny because of such.
$300 I seen this morning. I'm
Hey,
like,
man,
damn.
come on, man. Look, you got to embrace the moment, right? You'll never be able to get another like Clay's first return back
Yeah.
type of, experience again. So I guess everybody's just trying to capitalize on the moment. But I mean, just a big game for both sides. Obviously, this is also very significant because the Mavericks watched Luka Doncic step off with a left groin injury during that game as well, or at least leave that game with a left groin injury. But outside of that, Golden State Warriors pull out a big time win. Steph Curry knocked down 3-point jumper as expected, yelling at the camera at the end. You can see that the emotions of the entire situation kind of manifested itself. Like you said, 37 points with 12 points in the fourth quarter alone, right? Big way to be able to help close out the game itself. And I think it kind of further vindicated a lot of people that are Warriors optimists about a lot of the things that they have the flexibility to do. Jonathan Kuminga and Buddy Hield come off the bench and combine for 30. Not Buddy Hield game, but they still were able to get it done. That goes to show you that this team is going to be a real threat in the Western Conference because TV. I have to kind of go back to something that we talked about prior to the season, actually dating back to one of our conversations on the pod about Olympic Steph. And the question that I remember we were talking about beforehand when it came to translating back to the Golden State Warriors is like, is Steph Curry like still the best player on a championship team, like caliber of a guy still? The answer slowly but surely is continuing to round out to like say yes, and I might have to eat crow on this one because it seems like night in and night out, Steph Curry and the Warriors continue to find a way through. They're 9-2, second in the West, and they're also one of the best defenses in the league right now. So I mean, there's literally nothing you can poke holes into for this Golden State Warriors team right now, and I know Klay is looking at it from a bit of a bittersweet moment because I think that his fit with Dallas is a bit better under these circumstances. But
Yeah.
man, Golden State's off to a heater.
Yeah, no, they have been absolutely fantastic. And just seeing those freaking like plays where, especially earlier on, Steph Curry on Klay Thompson, Steph wanted that assignment. You could tell that
Yeah.
right away he wanted that assignment. And seeing them kind of chirp back and forth, Klay Thompson hitting a three and hitting the little shimmy as well. It was great. It was a great visual for all the fans there. And
Yeah.
also like just a great game in general. And Golden State, like you said, continuing to roll behind Steph Curry. And they showed in this game, you know, it wasn't one of their best 3-point shooting games. They didn't even attempt 50, which feels like that's the normal for the Golden State Warriors nowadays. But they were still able to pull through. I mean, I do have my concerns about the Luka Doncic fourth quarter again. I mean, he kind of goes again ton of Luka mode where it's like his shot or no shot whatsoever, and it kind of like bit him in the foot there. But at the same time, Golden State were able to pull it out. Great game in general. Great Klay return. I mean, he was trying to play it down all season long. He knew that was coming earlier on, and the fact that you could just see him, you know, he had to let some emotions out eventually. This wasn't some normal game, but yeah, just a great return in general. Great atmosphere. You love to see it. But Jay, this wasn't it. There was a Miami Heat game versus the Detroit Pistons where the Miami Heat had this game won. They even had a chance to tie up to get the win with like 1.6 seconds left. Firstly, the Pistons like almost botched this game, but then JB Bickerstaff drew an amazing play. Kate Cunningham lob to Jalen Duren to tie up the game with 1.6 seconds left. Eric Spoelstra calls a timeout, and I don't know if you guys know this. If you don't have a timeout, which the Miami Heat didn't, the other team gets a technical free throw, and that's how the Pistons won their first NBA Cup game, defeating the Miami Heat. Eric Spoelstra took full control after the game, full responsibility. Just Jake, quick thoughts. This was a crazy play.
I mean, look, it's not the way you want an NBA Cup game to end. It's not really a way you want any game to end,
Yeah.
in, off free throws because I mean it just feels like it like zaps the air out of the room. Um, I would also say at the same time that, like, again, lack of awareness of the situation. Eric Spoelstra had a bit of a Chris Webber moment, and those type of situations tend to cost you games. I think it actually would have been more surprising if the Heat somehow skid out of that situation unscathed, considering the ramifications that tend to come with that stuff. That's not the type of mental error that you can afford to make, especially in that later portion of the game. And it tends to always, like I said earlier, it tends to usually cost that team. And this kind of like further adds to the treasure trove of examples that, like, not only does coaching matter, but understanding situational basketball is always going to be a key factor, even in the regular season, to like close, like the ability to close games is so important in this league. And those little mistakes can be the difference between winning and losing a basketball game.
Yeah. I mean, like, you have to, I mean, if you think about it situationally, when Jalen Duren gets that dunk, they tie the game, 1.6 seconds left. It feels like, you know, as the opposing coach in that moment, it's like an automatic timeout. Let's get ourselves ready. So, like, I mean, it was a brain fart on Eric Spoelstra's behalf, 100%, but it was more like, this is what we should do in the situation, but oh, wait, we actually don't have that option with us. And that's what ultimately cost him the game. Shout out to the cameraman, by the way, because as all this was going on, the crowd's going crazy because this is the Pistons home crowd, home arena. Then they freaking pan to Jalen Rose, the man who was on the court during the Fab Five mishap with Chris Webber, and this man had the perfect reaction on his face to this whole situation. So it just felt like a full circle moment, especially back there in Detroit. I just felt like I found that pretty funny. But yeah, crazy, crazy game. The Heat end up losing their first NBA Cup game, and the Pistons. I mean, Jay, they look semi-competent this year. I mean, like we don't have to go too deep into it, but they look semi-competent, which is a lot to say compared to last year.
Hey, bro, listen, I told you before the season started, bro. Competency, it changes the dynamic of a basketball team, bro. JB Bickerstaff has those boys playing, and look at Cade Cunningham, my boy. Look at
Thank
him.
goodness. Also,
Look
shout out
at
to him.
him.
Freaking in my he is like in my I have like a work fantasy team, like a
Mm,
for fantasy league. This man's fourth in the league. Shout out to you, Cade. But yeah, he's been amazing
dude.
this year. He's been amazing this year.
Look at him being able to finally maximize his overall three-level scoring. He's more engaged on defense. This team just looks better when they have real competent NBA players on the floor at all times. This is a team that never necessarily fielded a full 8 to 10 man rotation of real NBA caliber players. I will repeat this on this podcast for probably like the seventh time. Jaden Ivey was coming off the bench behind Killian Hayes, who does not even have a job in the NBA this season. I think he's in the G League right now,
Yes,
potentially,
he
but
is. He is. Yes.
he's not even in the actual NBA this year. And Jaden Ivey was coming off the bench behind him. Like, dude, this team is just much more competent, much more well rounded. They have actual shooting threats around Kay Cunningham. They play a lot faster when Jaden Ivey comes off the bench. There's a staggering between those two that just gives them a completely different element on offense. I love what Detroit's doing, man. At the end of the day, this season is not about winning games because we understand that Detroit is not necessarily a like real playoff contender right now. This is about seeing what their young guys are capable of doing when they're actually playing meaningful basketball. And the Detroit Pistons have been in a lot of close games throughout the beginning of the season. They're not winning them, but it's the experience of playing meaningful basketball, not being blown out by 20 in the final 5 minutes of a game,
Yeah.
where you can finally start to learn about the guys you have in the building. We said this about the Houston Rockets last year. Bringing an adult in the room, a couple of adults, Fred Van Vliet and uh and Green, Jeff Green, like just Dylan Brooks, like bringing a couple adults in the room just helped completely solidify a direction for the Houston Rockets in terms of being able to really see like what the potential of their young guys is. And I think the Detroit Pistons are getting their version of that this year. I love seeing it, bro. I'm not gonna lie.
No, just I mean, like a crazy stat that I learned like just this week was that it took until January, like it took until like January of last season for them to win their fourth game of the season. They've done this by November now. Kind of just shows them like how far this team has come already. You love to see it with the Detroit Pistons. Shout out to them. But Jay, we're now like 1 year removed from the first NBA Cup.
Mm,
We are now going into the NBA Cup this year. I feel like there was a lot of confusion last year. I think people are starting to get the idea this year. Okay, we have these groups. Whoever's the top person in each group makes it to the next round. Or differential matters. I think we kind of got a hang of that.
mm.
How do you feel about the NBA Cup? How do you feel about it going into this year? Like, is there like at least puts a little bit more excitement into November and December games?
I mean, I'm gonna say the same thing I said last year. There's clearly a reflection from the players that the NBA Cup matters in some capacity. All of these games have been much more competitive than you would have anticipated for a November slate when we're still within the first 15 games
Yes.
of the season starting, right? Within the first 12, 13 games of the season starting. And you can clearly see a different dynamic with the NBA Cup environment between the newly designed courts, the dedicated jerseys, the overall atmosphere of understanding that, like, your team might not be playing for the playoffs, but this could be your team might not be a playoff team, but this could be a real opportunity for your players to do something that they can check off as a milestone for this season. Because they're being treated as meaningful games, there's a real competitive fervor to some of these matchups as well. I mean, shoot, the Dallas Golden State game is a perfect example
Yeah.
of that. Miami versus Detroit, as you mentioned before, a very perfect example. Portland coming out and smacking
Smacking the
Minnesota,
yeah.
right?
The Hawks beating the Celtics without like a lot of their main guys as well.
These are all things where you learn a lot more about your basketball team because everybody is treating it with the kind of importance that I think Adam Silver and the rest of the league wanted out of this. It's still too early to tell. And it's like you said, it's in the second iteration. We still kind of are wrapping our heads around the overall structure, but I think we have a pretty good baseline understanding of how it plays out, given that last year was, pretty good, all things considered, for its debut. And I think the biggest question this year is who are we going to get that chance where we see a team who isn't really in that conversation for being like a top 8 team in the conference. And they just go on a run in the NBA Cup and embrace the opportunity. They're like, look, we're not a playoff team yet. But in the NBA Cup games, we just tend to play with a different energy. And they're able to, who's gonna go on that March Madness Cinderella run? Like
Right.
that's what we're
Exactly.
waiting for. I think from a real ratings perspective, the NBA Cup is going to really take off when we see that first team that nobody's expecting to be in the tourney and just really knocking
Make a
people
run.
off.
Yeah, make a
You know what I'm
real run
saying?
at it. Yeah.
Indiana was a little bit of an iteration of that last year, just because I think the expectations for Indiana were kind of in the middle because this was pre Pascal Siakam
Yes.
trade, and this was kind of all built off of the strength of um Tyrese Halliburton, like
Yeah.
completely like teeing off as an MVP candidate in the
Yeah.
beginning of the year. But then we saw them go to the Eastern Conference Finals, and it was like, okay, well, they were at least a real threat in the
Yeah.
East this year. But
But honestly, like the NBA Cup could still be kind of that like extra motivation builder where it
yes,
could like kind of take you to the next level. It's like we can compete in like these high stakes games. Sure, it's not the NBA championship, but these are games that you care for. You give extra
yes.
care for. That's early on in the season. That can like maybe carry on for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I agree. I think that those are the type of things that, especially if you're a young basketball team, Detroit getting that win over Miami like that, Atlanta getting the win over Boston, like you mentioned beforehand, Orlando having the Wagner brothers combined for what was it like? Let me double check. Yeah, the Wagner brothers combined for 50 in a game without Paulo Banchero, and they take down the Hornets, who like Lamelo Ball has been like one of the hottest players in the league this year.
Yes.
I mean, you just look at a couple of these games on the opening slate, and you're like, Portland again. As I mentioned earlier, with Portland, they blew both of our parlays this week on the NBA Daily
Yes.
Picks Challenge because they've taken out the Minnesota Timberwolves. Like young teams, I think this is the NBA Cup benefits young teams because the young teams are usually the ones that this early in the season are like the easy picking. We're going to take them off because they're still trying to figure out their footing, but they're playing with a different kind of energy because they're also trying to learn about themselves in the process. And these kind of wins, it's not just beating a good team anymore. It's beating a good team with a chance to actually play for something meaningful, despite not maybe being ahead enough to be like able to look ahead to the playoffs, like a Milwaukee, like a Boston, like a Cleveland, like a Warriors team. Like there are some teams that can't see that light at the end of the tunnel the
Yeah.
way certain franchises can. And so the NBA Cup gives those teams something else to play for. And that
Yeah.
that's good. That's a good thing.
Yeah. Look, at the end of the day, they're they're making it feel important with the different with the different courts, the new jersey that they're going to be introducing with the NBA City jerseys, and just bringing more eyeballs to basketball in the dull days of November and December, where it feels like that's where kind of NFL starts teeing off. That's when, of course, hockey season starts. There's a lot of like stuff going on, but this just puts more eyeballs in the NBA, and it makes people care more. Like you mentioned, just any sort of extra effort in these early months of the season, you love to see it if you're Adam Silver, and you love to see it if you're the NBA fans. These feel important. These feel like there's like an extra little oomph to these games, and that's all you can really ask for games that are being played this early into the season. Obviously, there's gonna be need some things that need to be tinkered to. This is only season two, but as so far, is it not doing like exactly what it was intended? It is, and it gives like again all these teams that maybe wouldn't be able to make like a run in the playoffs. Obviously, that's a lot harder to do, but it gives like it tells like these other teams like, look, we are not to be pushed around. We are still an NBA team, and one loss in this NBA Cup could really just take you out of contention. And I think that's the type of like energy, this type of like unpredictability that you want in this type of tournament.
I 100% agree. Like I said, across the board, I think that if this serves the purpose that they're looking for, it takes the NBA regular season to a different level, and it's much needed because we need competition back in the NBA. If you're gonna make it 82 games, you need to make it worth it both for players and for fans to want to invest, especially in the early portions of the NBA, because that's the time where you have to set the tone for what the rest of the season is going to look like.
Yes.
And especially when we know the dog days of the NBA towards, like the March, April space, that's when you start to kind of wonder about the state of the league. Like, things kind of are set here and there. That's also part of the reason why they made the why they made the play-in tournament, was to kind of shore up the back half of the season.
Yes.
Like, they're trying to create methods to be able to make the full season competitive across the board. And I do think this is a really strong element to incorporate. And again, we're still kind of like, we're seeing this in the second iteration. We can only do so much off of its second iteration, one game in, but I, I've enjoyed it so far,
Yeah.
personally. Me
I've definitely
personally.
been enjoying it. I want to hear. We want to hear your guys' thoughts down below on the NBA Cup so far. Who do you think is going to win the NBA Cup? Because honestly, it's all up in the air right now. We want to hear you guys' thoughts, and hopefully, when we get to Vegas in that mid-December period, we're going to see some very interesting matchups. And when it comes to these semifinal and final matchups, it's going to be exciting. Jay, we're gonna move on to the next topic, and there's a lot of things I want to cover here, but like we did last week in terms of real facade, I'm gonna put a little bit of a twist in it to talk about these NBA news, and we're gonna kind of go with these sort of predictions, and then we're gonna rank it on a scale from 1 to 10 of how likely there are to happen. There's a lot of things going on in the NBA right now, and there's some certain trends that we want to look at, and we're gonna be talking about it here. So Jay, here's the first topic: Nikola Jokic. Yes, we're talking about Nikola Jokic because every single year, we always are like, is Jokic going to be in contention for another MVP? Oh, MVP voter fatigue is going to get to him finally. Well, guys, this season, Nikola Jokic is leading a 7-3 Denver Nuggets team, leading the way, averaging basically 30 points a game, 14 rebounds, and 12 assists. Clearly the best numbers of his career. And when a lot of people thought, maybe voter fatigue is going to get to him now, this Nuggets team was not looking good to start the first 2 games of the season. And Nikola Jokic, through his sheer power and dominance, has brought them to being a competent team, one of the top teams in the West once again. Jay, on a scale from 1 to 10, how likely is it that Jokic will win his fourth MVP award?
I'm gonna put it at like a 7 or an 8. I don't want to go full 10 because I do think some of the elements that we thought were gonna be the reason why he wouldn't MVP, voters fatigue, other teams emerging in the Western Conference, the East being very top heavy still, all being things that could contribute to maybe him not being considered in the same light. I just also think that, like, the dude is otherworldly, and he's clearly still showing that he is the best player in the league, which we've been saying for like the last, what, 3
3 years?
4 years
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
um so I just genuinely think, and I think the biggest thing was through the first 3 games of the season when stuff was looking real rocky. I think you would have thought he was just putting up video game numbers in spite of his team. When he kind of realized that he had to put up the video game numbers and beyond in order for his team to win on a night to night basis, paired with obviously, the play of Christian Brown, Brody slowly but surely stepping more into the role of being a bench piece for them. Different element, Jamal Murray coming out of concussion protocol, all of these different things kind of culminating at the same time. This team is again one of the better teams in the Western Conference again after a slow start. And we went from worrying about them to now being like, could they still finish like as a top 3, top 4 team in the West off the pure back of Nikola Jokic backpacking this team
It's
through the regular
possible.
season? So I have to keep that realistically in the cards. I actually looked back at it, and I mean, compared to Russell Westbrook's MVP season, This is like this blows the doors off of that.
Yeah. It's
And if you look at any of the three other MVP seasons for Nikola Jokic, including the year where he lost as a runner-up to Joel Embiid, and another year where we thought he was very deserving of it, this might be his best season ever. This might be Nikola. So there's a real possibility that this is Nikola Jokic's best season ever, and he might not win MVP off of the powers that be, despite the fact that this is clearly a dude who is the best player in the NBA on one of the best teams in the NBA. Clearly going to have this team as a top 4 seed in the Western Conference, and name the guy who's going to stop him.
there isn't.
I'll wait. You know.
Like we have to. This is to put in perspective how ridiculous this season is. He is fifth in the league in scoring, first in rebounding, first in assists. This team, he is just backpacking this Denver Nuggets team to a top 5 offense. We knew their defense was going to regress. Obviously, the Aaron Gordon injury sucks. Obviously, losing KCP sucks. But they're not a bottom 10 defense, and he is, by every stretch of the word, by any definition of the word, carrying, backpacking this Denver Nuggets team. You see that with him on the court, Christian Brown is like seeing the benefits of like being in the starting lineup, playing next to Nikola Jokic for like 30 minutes a night. Michael Porter Jr., after having such a slow start, is really picking it up. And Jay, inching towards 50, 40, 80 status right now in terms of his like efficiency, he is doing very well. Payne Watson moving into starting lineup actually is helping him like go into his game now that Aaron Gordon's injured. Like, and the fact that after such a slow start, they're currently on a 5-game winning streak, and you see every single night Nikola Jokic putting these video game numbers up. What other argument is there for anyone for MVP? Sure, Anthony Davis, it's ridiculous numbers. The Lakers are near 500. They're not like in the top 3 in the West conversation. Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, sure they had the top effort in the West, but regress numbers from last year. What other arguments to this? Like Nikola Jokic clearly has the best stats in the league, and his stats are directly related to the Denver Nuggets winning basketball games. It's pretty simple.
Yeah.
And I hope that voter fatigue doesn't come here, because we need to, like, instead of like saying like, oh, this guy's won too much, oh, we need to kind of switch the narrative away from this guy. We have to appreciate that every time we want to count this guy out and say that he's had his, like, we've seen the peak version of him, he always
Mhm.
seems to break through that glass ceiling. And once again, Nikola Jokic has done it.
I think the real question is, TV, and I'm putting you on the spot, and I'll do it too,
Yeah.
but I'm putting you on the spot here. If you had to give your top 5 MVP ballot right now through 10 to 12 games, what would your like 5 guys look like? You can
Like,
give it in order or
oh
you can
no,
give it in no order. It's up to you.
I'll give you like a general idea of where I'm at with this. So New
Okay.
Jokic obviously is up there.
Yeah.
We have Donovan Mitchell, 13-0 team. He's the top guy on that team. Jason
Yeah.
Tatum, ridiculous numbers already in this year. Shout to Anthony Davis. I mean, look, besides Nikola Jokic, probably looks like a top 3 player in the NBA right now with the way he's playing, and he's healthy. Shout out to AD. And then last but not least, I mean, we need a few more game. I was gonna say Kevin Durant, but he's been injured, so I don't want to put him on that ballot for now. I would
Yeah.
still probably say Shea. I'll still probably say Shea as like my 5th guy, but that's generally where I'm at with the MVP.
So I have to agree with you. I think I had a little bit more of a solidified order. If I had to set up an order for the MVP ballot right now, I think that I would probably have like I probably would have Jokic 1, Shea 2, probably Donovan Mitchell 3, Jason Tatum 4, Anthony Davis 5.
Yeah,
And that's only because I thought, honestly, Anthony Davis was in my top 3 earlier on in the season. Things have slowed down a little bit for them as of recent, talking about the Lakers, and that's kind of impacted things to a certain degree. But outside of that, I do agree with you. I think the top 5 is kind of solidified, whether it's based off of team record, best player on best team, and individual stats all being considered. So again, my top 5 would be Nikola Jokic at the 1. I think at the 2 spot, I would probably put Shea Gilgeous-Alexander 3, Donovan Mitchell 4, Jason Tatum 5, Anthony Davis. That would be my slate. And I think that there's a real chance that that group stays that way for a good majority of the season, you mentioned Kevin Durant. He was a guy on my short list. Another guy who I think is going to be worth paying real attention to is going to
Giannis.
be Giannis. Exactly. And it's just because I think that as Milwaukee starts to slowly get themselves together, because they're 12th in the East right now. That's like absolutely
Yeah.
ridiculous. They're behind the Hornets, Pistons, and Heat. The Nets have outperformed things a little
Yeah.
bit, but those three teams, the Heat, Pistons, and Hornets, those are all teams that like, you know, we had real questions about before the season started. And
Hey,
the
look,
Nets are just
Bo.
punching above their weight.
Yeah. Hey,
So
look. The Bucks are one win away from potentially being seventh. That's how random this East has been so far this year. Just to
yeah.
like kind of like put into perspective. But yeah, the Bucks, they're good. They're slowly getting there. But Giannis has been ridiculous.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think that group of five is going to be the main guys that kind of hold things down until about February. But I think that Giannis, especially with the 59-point performance the other night, those type of things are going to be the way that he puts himself into that conversation. And but yeah, man, Jokic is on another level. I'm
Yeah.
at a 7 to an 8, but if I had a ballot that would go in right now for who my MVP would be, as I gave you the list, I think Jokic would be the winner.
Yeah,
12
no,
games into the season.
yeah, I didn't even give my rating at the beginning. I would also give it about an 8, just because of like, again, a lot of other factors, especially depending on how high the Denver Nuggets can keep themselves at. But it's clearly looking amazing so far. And Nikola Jokic is the best guy on like a very like a top team in the West. So shout out to him. All right,
Yeah.
next one though. The Houston Rockets currently right now sit at number 5 in the Western Conference at 8-4. We talked about winning by committee with this team in the past. We've seen, Jalen Green have a nice consistent start to a season. Albert Şengün, great start to a season. Is this sustainable? Will the Rockets finish be a top 6 team in the West come playoff time? How likely is that on a scale from 1 to 10?
Okay, this one I teetered with a little bit because the question was like, what is sustainable versus what is not? Some of the notable stats that I think are mainly contributing to that is that they are third in both opponents' points per game and defensive rating. That means the Houston Rockets are the third best defense in the entire league as of today. You mentioned beforehand, obviously, that the start for Jalen Green and Alperen Şengün has been significant, but I think it's also important to mention that they have 7 players averaging double figures.
Committee. This team is doing it by committee.
And most importantly, our boy Tari Eason is hooping, which has been really important in my eyes because Tari Eason has always been a difference maker, kind of waiting to happen for this Houston Rockets team that just hasn't been healthy. 12.2 points per game, 1.8 steals, nearly 1.5 blocks, nearly six rebounds. And although he's not necessarily like shooting the three at any type of crazy clip, 55% from the field is definitely solid. This team has a lot of switchability. They have two go-to players they can rely on. They have a grown-up in the room in Fred VanVleet to kind of make sure that everything is in order. I'm gonna put this at like a 6 or a 7, man. I think obviously you got to look at the standings and you got to be a little realistic about some of the things that we see in the early goings. The Suns could drop a little bit with Kevin Durant out, but we know the Mavericks are better than 12th. We know the
Yes.
Timberwolves are better than 11th. Are the Clippers better than ninth, given the fact that the James Harden to Vika Zubac connection has been really good, and Stormin Norman, your former Toronto Raptor, has
Yeah.
been on a heater through the beginning portion of the season, right? Like these are different elements where I think some of the teams that are in the bottom out just outside of that top 8, those teams are not going to finish where we look at them right now. I don't believe that. And
Yeah.
that puts Houston in a very vulnerable situation. But like I said, the Suns could regress. The Nuggets are heavily influenced by the play of Nikola Jokic on a night to night basis. We never know about the Lakers. And obviously, John Morant and the Grizzlies are having yet another injury crisis. So the Western Conference is very shaken up. I think the Rockets, I put it at a 5-6 because I think that if they finish in the top 6, it's going to probably be the 6 seed is the highest likelihood.
Yeah, no, I'm also with you there. I'm at a 5 just because that middle of the West is going to be such like a jumble at the end of the year. Like we said it before the season, you're going to need like a 45 win, 46 win pace in order to even be considered a play-in team in the West. We saw that last year. The Rockets were a few games off, but they were right there last year. I think they were like a 500 team. This year, the team gets older. Jalen Green still needs to work on his efficiency, but he's got off to a solid start to the season. Şengün has been fantastic. But what this Rockets team does, and I think like the Trailblazers are finally starting to realize this too, when you're a young team and you have a strong base in terms of your defense, then success will follow. Because when you look at the way the Rockets are winning, like you mentioned, third in opponents' points per game, third in defensive rating, that is what's keeping them at this 8-4 record. When you look at the wins of the Trailblazers, who are currently 5-8, all of their wins they've allowed 105 points or less. They win on the backs of their defense, having a good defensive scheme. Ime Udoka coming in here from last year has like improved their team to a top 10 defense last year and now improving now to a top 5 defense. They just have so many guys in that team with the switchability. Like there were games earlier this year where Şengün wasn't even playing fourth quarters. They were playing Amen Thompson because of switchability, the way they're able to run the floor. They just have so many guys they can throw at you that they're kind of prepared for many different sort of scenarios, situations, and they're coming out the other end very well, especially as a young team. Now, there's obviously going to be an issue with trying to figure out who's going to stay, who's going to go. Like Cam Whitmore right now is playing in the G League. That's how freaking deep this team is that they had to sign him down to the G League. But this team right now has a lot of guys that they could throw at teams, and they've shown this year that they can win in many different ways. That's why I'm kind of at a 5, just because I think they're going to be in the mix. Whether they're going to come out the right side of it and not play a playing game or not, it's going to be down to like inches. It's going to be a game of inches at that point.
Yeah, I think this is one of those teams where the play-in tournament structure, it might actually favor them as a younger squad. Like this is going to be a team that towards the end of the season they're going to play up. And while some of the older teams that are going to be just trying to get through the rest of the regular season and survive the later portion of the 82 game stretch, this is one of those teams between depth and the fact that they're built off the strength of their defense. It's going to really allow them to play at a high level when the stakes are going to be a much higher, when seeding is going to become one of those things where like every game can dictate. We saw it last year where you could go from fourth to seventh in 2 nights if you have a bad stretch. You know what I mean? And I
Yeah,
think that the Houston Rockets are going to be one of those teams that mess around and benefit from the atmosphere that has been created by the play-in tournament, um, that's placed at the end of the year, and the significance of that space being something to fight for in the later portion of the year.
yeah, 100%. Also, I know we talked about this earlier, but this could be a team where if a good, they could maybe be like a Pacers of this year, or if they go on a good NBA Cup run. I mean, their group is actually not too difficult to you win out of. You have the Blazers, you have the Clippers, you have the Kings. You have some good teams, but if a few things go their way, can the Rockets come out of it? For sure. If they can go on this run, build up that confidence in these young players, bring that on for the rest of the season, especially with the depth that they have, we can we see a place this type of run? Who knows? But I'm just saying, there's a lot of ways for there where they can actually take this momentum they have and use that to propel them for the rest of the season.
I'm high on Houston. I think this is a team that's going to be really good this year. And if they finish outside the playoffs or they make the play-in tournament, I think you still have to take that as a positive step forward
For
for a team
sure.
that we saw and heard from players like John Wall, Eric Gordon, and so on and so forth, that like this organization was in shambles just a few years ago.
Oh, they called it the black hole. They called it the
Mhm.
black hole. Like it was that bad. But look, man, you mentioned it with the Pistons earlier. Competency means a lot.
Yep.
Just getting someone competent, getting a few vets in there can change everything in terms of a young team. And they're going in the right direction. They are going in the right direction, which you love to see. All right, Jay, next one.
Okay.
We're going to talk about Jared McCain. Look at that. We're talking about another NBA rookie. It feels like Jay, is it going to be something where we just talk about a different NBA rookie every week?
Look, man, we're trying our best to highlight this 2024 class, bro, as much as we can. This is a class that did not come in with as much hype as some of the prior groups that we've seen and highly anticipated. So the fact that there are a few guys that are actually standing out in the early portion of the season, we want to give them their just due. We know the later it gets in the season, rookies are going to become a lot less influential when the games start mattering a lot more, right? Or at least a good handful of rookies are going to be a lot less influential towards the end of the season. So in this beginning portion where these guys can kind of set themselves up for a chance at real rotation minutes
Yeah,
later in the year, there's a couple of guys like a Jared McCain that we just have to give some love to, man. We have to show
yeah,
some love. And Jared McCain, and specifically, hey man, he's had himself a good week. He's had himself a
bro,
really good week.
bro. Look, I mean, the Sixers are cursed. Let's be honest. The Sixers are a cursed team right now. Tyrese Maxey out. They finally got back Joel Embiid after that suspension. But if there's one guy right now that is benefiting from all this, is Jared McCain. This is the stat line that we've talked about over this past week alone. First game after the Tyrese Maxey injury, 18 points, 2 assists, solid. Next game, 27, 3-2 on over 50% shooting, great. Next one, 23, 3-2 against the New York Knicks, and then this last game against the Cleveland Cavaliers. Yes, they lost in. Oh, yes, they lost this game, but they were able to pull through and they were able to and he was able to get a massive game. This is in I think was this in the NBA Cup? It wasn't sorry. It was the day after the NBA Cup. But
Mhm.
34 points and 10 assists on 26 shots. Jay, I'm going to put this out here. Scale from 1 to 10. Jared McCain starting next to Tyrese Maxey. Scale 1 to 10. What do you think?
This might be high praise. This is gonna be my highest score, I think, of today's episode. I'm gonna put this at like a cool 9, bro.
Look,
I
man. I mean, Maxey plays really well when he has a secondary ball handler next to him. He plays really well, and I think Jared could be that guy.
I mean, the two other options are Kyle Lowry, who was in that same Cleveland Cavaliers game you mentioned, 17 minutes, 0 points, 0 of 6 from the field, 0 of 4 from three, and Reggie Jackson, who we know is a streaky shooter and tend to be a little inconsistent. We've seen that both between his stints in LA with the Clippers and even Denver. Like, obviously, the rookie wall can potentially be a thing with Jared McCain, and we do have to keep that in consideration. But like, we knew coming out of the draft that he was one of the best shooters in the class, right? He was discussed up there with like the Reed Shepherds of the world as a guy who was going to be a knockdown shooter out the gate. So 6 from 13 from 3 against Cleveland doesn't sound like a mistake to me. 4 New York doesn't sound like a mistake to me. The fact that he's getting up over the last 4 games at least 7 to 8 attempts per game from beyond the arc does not surprise me at all. Now, I was surprised that he got 26 shots against Cleveland, even given the circumstances without Paul George,
Yeah.
Tyrese Maxey, and Joel
And Joel
Embiid.
Embiid, yeah.
Yeah, him getting 26 shots still surprised me, given the fact that that's dang near running the offense through him. But I think the reality of it is that spacing around Joel, a space lineup of Tyrese Maxey, Jared McCain, Paul George, let's
Kelly
say
Oubre
Caleb Martin probably
or
at the
Kelly Oubre,
four,
or you could put like PG
or
at the
Kelly.
4 or
Yeah,
Kelly.
or
Yeah, that's yeah.
that could get a little interesting.
Caleb, yeah. Well, Caleb has been like really struggling to start the season. That's the only like yeah,
That's
yeah,
the thing, but I think he also plays very. I think he plays a lot better at power
yeah,
forward if
yeah,
he has a real rim defender behind him. I think that's one of those
yeah.
things, especially on defense. I think that will help him out. He had a little bit better of a game against Cleveland, 18-7 in 33 minutes. Nothing
Mhm.
crazy, but there's things to like. But I think a starting five of Tyrese Maxey, Jared McCain, Paul George, either Caleb Martin or Kelly Oubre at the four, or Paul George at the four, and put one of those two guys in Caleb Martin or Kelly Oubre at the three, and then Joel Embiid at the five. You have legitimate spacing, real switchability from your 3 through 5 in terms of being able to guard multiple positions. Yes, you have a smaller backcourt, but we've seen the success offensively of smaller backcourts throughout NBA history. We're seeing it right now in Cleveland, right? So there are opportunities where creating real spacing around Joel Embiid and having two dynamic guards that both can put the ball in the basket and having Paul George as a tertiary option, that could be a fully maximized starting five. And let's say Jared McCain doesn't start next to Tyrese Maxey. I damn sure want him closing games
Yes.
based on how he's playing. I damn sure want him closing games because his ability to stretch the floor creates real opportunities for Joel to take over in fourth quarters because you have to respect Jared from three. You have to respect PG from three. You have to respect Tyrese from three. You have to respect. I say Caleb Martin at the four because I think I trust him more as a 3 point shooter
Yeah.
than Kelly Oubre. You have to respect those guys from three. And so that makes it where now Joel Embiid has more one-on-one opportunities. And if you want to double, good luck because we have four shooters that can spray. And that creates a completely different dynamic for Philly because they've never had that. They've never had that. They've had a shooter or two next to Joel Embiid. They've never had a optimized roster where you had four potential knockdown guys around Joel. Jared gives them that like third or fourth guy.
100%. I do like that possibility of him. Again, it covers two bases with Jared McCain. One, it is the spacing that you're looking for when you're with the next to Joel Embiid, especially because Caleb Martin has been struggling. You don't know on a night-to-night basis what type of 3 point shooter you get from Kelly Oubre. It's good to have more of that reliable force, and if Jared McCain can continue to showcase that 3 point shot, there he's in good hands. The other thing this does though, and I mentioned at the top, I mean Tyrese Maxey is the lead ball handler. He worked like we've seen his best years next to James Harden, and I'm not comparing Jared McCain to James Harden whatsoever. But what I am saying is that he could be a secondary ball handler if he can like deal with some playmaking abilities. He could, alleviate pressure and let Tyrese Maxey move off ball, which he seems a lot more comfortable in. If he can develop those playmaking skills next to Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid and Paul George, three who of which are fantastic options to have as your outlets next to a Jared McCain, it could really benefit the team. Now, the reason, compared to your nine, I'm going with a six is the potential of two 6'2" guys in the backcourt. That's my only issue with this. But if his playmaking is good enough, if his shooting is good enough, then that could alleviate the potential problems that can come with having a very short backcourt. Because if his skill set can outplay his height, then that shouldn't be an issue. And I think they could just find themselves another two guard next to Tyrese Maxey again, who benefits more from having a secondary ball handler. So I'll have that at a six, but I do like the aspect of him really benefiting a Joel Embiid type, but also accompanying their second star very well in Tyrese Maxey.
I mean, I think you make a really solid point. I think the only pushback I give is that, I mean, looking at this roster right now, who's the guard that you would say would be starting next to
I mean, they've been playing like
Tyrese?
they've been playing like that weird line. Like I mean, it's hard to say just because they haven't been fully healthy. But I
True.
think, but I think like what they were looking at was a Maxi, Oubre, Paul George, Caleb, and Joel Embiid. But then they
Yeah.
realized that not enough ball handling next to Tyrese Maxey, and that's just going to put too much pressure on him to create the offense on his own.
Yeah.
So having someone else reliable as that secondary ball handler would be nice. But this also helps with a bunch of the switchability, which Nick Nurse's system is like always looking for in terms of having Kelly and Caleb on the court at the same time.
Yeah, because I think if you're talking about having a traditional guard next to Tyrese Maxey in the backcourt, they're probably starting Kyle Lowry and he's 6 foot, right? So they're
Yeah.
gonna kind of have to pick their poison with that one as well because he's 6 foot, and then if I go to, if I'm not mistaken, yeah, Reggie Jackson's 6'2". So
Hmm.
they kind of step into a circumstance where if they want to run a traditional backcourt, they're going to have a relatively undersized backcourt, kind of by hook or crook. So, like I said before, it kind of comes down to like who is your best option of those three guys. I think Kyle Lowry is not as big of a threat to score as he used to in his Toronto Raptors days. And I think that Reggie Jackson is not as much of a threat as a 3 point shooter consistently for him to be somebody that I think deserves more minutes over Jared, who we know is coming out of the draft classified as a knockdown shooter type. Like even if he does not provide significant on-ball threat, like threats as a like a shot creator off the dribble, like shot generator, we know that he can be one of the most dangerous catch and shoot guys in the league just because of the kind of clip he has. So his threat to shoot the ball offensively makes him much more dangerous than a Reggie Jackson or of a Kyle Lowry. Like you mentioned beforehand, if we're talking about making a bigger lineup, then I think that Jared will just be like the ultimate six man for that team.
Yes.
Um, it'll be interesting to see this team fully healthy because, like you mentioned beforehand, that's the biggest question mark here, right? Because coming into the season, we thought that Tyrese Maxey, Paul George at the two, Kelly Oubre at the three, Caleb Martin at the four, Joel Embiid at the five. We thought that was the lineup. We were certain of it,
Yeah.
and we haven't even seen like 30
Mm,
seconds
not
of that
even.
full
Yeah. Yeah.
iteration.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
Exactly.
saying?
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see what the first 30 seconds even of
Looks
that
like
group
it.
looks like. And if it's not as good as we would hope, I think the four out around Joel Embiid design with Jared McCain in the starting lineup and Caleb Martin at the four next to PG and Tyrese is their best starting or at least their best closing five-man unit,
Yeah.
personally.
Honestly, that could be the case. All I know for sure, at least at the very least, he needs to have like either first or second dibs off the bench. That's he needs to. They need that sort of extra creator out there, and he brings so much in terms of spacing. Like you're right, they need to have him on the court. They need to find minutes for him whatsoever. He should be over guys like Reggie Jackson and Kyle Lowry for this team, 1,000,000%. But
Yeah.
yeah, let us know what you guys think down below for that one. Jay, final one. This one's a bit more of like a tamer one, just because this matchup is coming soon. But Jay, the Cavs are still undefeated. They're
Yeah.
13-0 right now, and there is this marquee matchup next week, Jay. Cavs versus Celtics, the two teams in the East that seem like they know what the heck that they're doing because the rest of the teams are kind of in a mud right now. But these two teams are up for a matchup. Jay, how likely is it that that the Cavs are going to be undefeated when it comes to that matchup? Will they be 15-4? 15-0, sorry.
Well, look, TV, that would also involve me having to pick against my Chicago Bulls tomorrow. But in all seriousness, considering the fact that Cleveland's already beat Chicago. Now it's kind of hard to beat the same team twice in 1 week, but we also saw the Trailblazers do that to freaking Minnesota
Back to back
earlier.
nights.
Yeah, so anything is possible in the NBA. Obviously I hate betting against the Bulls, and I think Charlotte has a really strong offense built around LaMelo Ball, Brandon Miller, and Trey, man, who's been hooping.
Woo,
My boy been looking like a real and one mixtape.
woo.
Um, but if I had to put a scale on this, I'm gonna give it like a cool seven. Bulls bias probably contributes to that, but I think also again, um, I do think it's just hard to beat the same team twice in the same week. And I also think that you just need one hot shooting night from the perimeter players for Charlotte, and they could be completely dangerous as well. But I think Cleveland has. We said it before the season starts. Like as their current makeup, they they have everything you want in a basketball team. They have
Yes.
a real six man of the year candidate, two all-star level guards, two all-star level like front court players. They have depth to the point that we're talking about guys like Ty Jerome being like real, like Ty Jerome, Tyus Jones. These are the kind of guys that are going to get
Oh,
highlighted on the hit
he's
your
been
free
one of the
throws.
best backup PGs this year.
Come on, man. These are the type of guys that are going to get highlighted on the Hit Your Free Throws podcast once a week, once every month, because like they're just really solid NBA players that when they're on your team, you're just more likely to win basketball games. And that's what Cleveland is working with right now. Isaac Okoro is hitting shots. Like this team is playing at a really high level. I almost feel kind of stupid for only going as low as seven. Like I said, Bulls bias might be contributing to that a little bit, but I'm gonna stick with my seven. And then their matchup against Boston, their first matchup up against Boston of the year, I believe, as well, if I'm not mistaken. That will be a real test um for them to be playing up against a real title contender. Because if we go through their schedule, let's be honest, the only team based off the first 12 games that we think is actually going to still like really be like in contention for a title this year is probably the Warriors, who they blew out by almost 20 points.
Yeah.
Because we still have questions about Milwaukee. We still have questions about New York, whose defense is atrocious, by the way. We'll have to talk about that in a
Yeah.
different podcast. We never know about the Lakers, and we haven't seen Philly fully healthy. So the only team that we've seen that we think, based off the first 12 games, is a real championship contender has been Golden State, and they blew them out by 20 points, then nearly 20 points. So Boston will be their first real Eastern Conference test. And I think that's going to be like a must watch game. That's definitely going to be a game that I end up using for the Daily Picks Challenge because it's like, it's just going to be must watch TV. I have to put something on the line for that game.
No,
And the
it's
streak of Cleveland is going to be easily, the biggest storyline of that Tuesday night.
100%. That is a game that I'm going to be locked into. And look, these next two games, it's going to be hard to deal with. I know they beat the Bulls already this year, but the Bulls' speed at the pace that they play with is always going to be a problem for any team. As you can see for the Knicks yesterday, you guys pulled out the win. And then this Hornets team, you already know, like you don't know what like if like this LaMelo Ball like showcase is going to continue, and if that's going to be enough to pull them over the top against this Cleveland Cavaliers team. There's going to be like these mini bumps in the road, but I'm gonna say it's about an 8 out of 10 chance, just because I felt like there were a few of these games which felt like quote unquote trap games for the
Yeah.
Cavaliers, and they were still able to pull through, even though they did have like mini struggles here and there. I think they're gonna be able to push through and make this matchup even more of a marquee matchup, putting their 50-0 streak on the line against the defending champions. But and they've been just so good this year. One of the teams that haven't been decimated with injuries, fingers crossed, knocking on wood, that they don't deal with that sort of problems. But I mean, we talked about them last week, man. They have like this chemistry that they built up over 3 years. The fact that they've got this new coach that can maximize each and every one on their roster. The fact that we're talking about Tyler Jerome for a second straight week, you love to see it. Like this team is just really damn good. And if they get a statement win like they did against the Warriors, but against the defending champion Boston Celtics, then we're gonna see some like real eyes locked onto this Cleveland Cavaliers team saying, you know what, this team, yes, like we know that they've had this crazy record. Yes, we probably should have considered them already, but now we're like, okay, they are title contenders this early on to the season if they especially get a marquee win against the Boston Celtics.
Yeah, like I said, must watch TV next week. Easily going to be the game of the night. Doesn't really matter what else is going on that night, um, because the streak being on the line against probably their biggest competition in the Eastern Conference this year, at least up till now, is going to just be like a much watched storyline. And I think that it's also going to give us a good indication of different things that we might want to watch out for, if these teams were to match up in the postseason. Like, I don't think that either team is going to necessarily show their cards, but I do think at the same time, each of these teams has a different element that could benefit them in a 7 game series. Like, I think that the front court for Cleveland is much more dangerous on both sides of the ball than Boston. But I think that the wing play and the overall versatility of having Jason Tatum, Jalen Brown, Drew Holiday, Derek White on the perimeter makes them dangerous defensively against a Darius Garland and a Donovan Mitchell who drive their offense. Like
Yeah,
that little chess match between Ime Udoka and
Joel
oh god
Mazzulla.
and Joel
So,
excuse me, I said Ime Udoka.
yes, Kenny
Um
Atkinson.
yeah,
Kenny
Kenny
Atkinson.
Atkinson and Joe Mazzulla is going to be like one of the more intriguing things of that game.
It's gonna be fantastic. And again, we talked about. I mean, he says it's gonna be his game tonight. It's probably gonna be mine as well. Definitely, if there's a game you're gonna watch next week, lock in on Tuesday night. It's definitely gonna be nationally televised. Cavs versus Celtics. Hopefully, the Cavs are still have their undefeated streak going into that game to make it even more must watch. But yeah, let us know what you guys think down below on a scale from 1 to 10 on any of these topics that we just discussed. Even your thoughts on the NBA Cup, we want to hear that as well down in the comment section below. Jay, time for the next topic of the show, and it is time for the NBA draft. And it is that time of the month, Jay, just because every month we've been doing a draft of the best player per month for birthdays, and now we decided we're doing November. You guys know how this goes. Jay gets the first pick. I get the next two, so on and so forth. As we try to draft the best players who were born in November. Jay, how do you feel about this draft pool players?
Um, I gotta be honest, not our best month. In
Yeah,
terms of the grouping, it's gonna be me and you. Ironically, off camera, we're looking ahead to December, and that seems like that is gonna be the best draft
the craziest
ever.
month.
Yeah, that is easily gonna be our best draft ever of the series. Just kind of like given the overall talent. I don't know if there's another month that will do this that like will have a more star-studded group to choose from than
Yes.
December. But I'm not mad at November's group. I don't love it, but I don't hate it.
I don't hate it either. And like I said, Jay's gonna get the first round pick. Let's see what we're gonna be doing with this interesting group of players as well. So Jay, you have the first overall pick for the November birthdays. Who are you gonna go with?
Remember, guys, we get the best version of whatever player that we are drafting. So that always contributes as well.
100%.
And I'm gonna keep it a being, bro. I'm going with Brody still. Give me Russell Westbrook, November 12th.
Russell Westbrook, damn good pick over there. Mr. Triple Double himself. That is a good pickup. Yeah, I love that you picked Russell Westbrook first overall, actually, because it gives me a chance to pick like his like what comparison, his kind
Mm,
of like a classic Westbrook in terms of the old Mr. Triple Double.
mm.
Jay, for my first pick, I'm going with Oscar Robertson over there at my two. I'm actually going to play with my two guard as well. He's going to play at my two. I'm going to have Oscar Robertson, the original Mr. Triple Double. So him and Russell on opposite teams. Pretty dope. Pretty dope. And then talking about best peaks of all time. Jay, give me Bill Walton at the center position. Former
Yeah,
MVP. Before the injuries, man was projected to be a top 20 player all time. So I'm
yeah.
gonna go with Bill Walton.
Man, that's a good way to lead off. That's a good way to lead off. Here's what I'm gonna do though. I'm gonna shear up my front court, and I'm gonna do it in a hurry. Let me get. Let me get. Do I trust? You know what? We've seen him do it before. We've seen him do it before. We're gonna put Carl Anthony Towns at the 4,
Yes.
and we're gonna put Amari Fire at the 5.
Okay. Yo,
Yeah,
dude, that is an offensive front court if I have ever seen one. That's gonna
we're
be
gonna lean into it. We're gonna lean into it.
that is a good two. Very fun front court, by the way. Very, very fun. To if that was a real combo for the time, that would have been a really good one. So those are two good picks. You shored up your power for your two big man positions, which is dope. All right. Let's go with my next pick. And for these ones, Jay, I'm just gonna keep it classic. For my point guard, give me Earl the Pearl Monroe.
Okay.
I'm going. I feel like this is the oldest I've gone for my team, but
It
we've got
is.
some.
That's why I'm surprised.
We've got like we've got some of like these classic Hall of Famers. I gotta show some love to Earl the Pearl, and then for one of my four positions, this is tough. This is a tough group to choose. But I'm gonna go with someone that honestly is gonna give anyone problems any day of the week. In his prime, amazing offensively, but this guy is a freaking enforcer here at the wing position. Give me Meta World Give me Ron Artest.
Yeah, he was definitely on. He was definitely next on my list. Meta World Peace, aka Ron Artest, would have definitely been like one of the next guys off the board for me. I gotta be real.
Yeah.
Ooh, okay, that gets tricky because now we got the 2-3, and that was definitely like the best three on the board. But we're gonna give Russell Westbrook somebody in the backcourt to provide some defense. Give me at the 2. Let me get Avery Bradley
Okay.
at the
Okay.
2. All NBA caliber defender when he was back with the Celtics. Definitely a guy who kind of like faded into the abyss once the 3-point shot wasn't landing, but still a dude that just was like an absolute menace, 94 feet. And then let me get Oh man, there's somebody at the 2 that I could have gotten instead, but it would have been more offense heavy, so I'm not mad at it.
Yeah.
Let me get at my 3. Let me get Jerry Stackhouse.
Like that.
Comes up on the
Okay.
podcast. This is not the first time he has been drafted on this podcast, by the way, and it will not be the last, I don't think.
Jerry Stackhouse. That is a damn good choice. Yeah, I like that. I like that. I mean, like, when you look at his prime numbers, this guy was averaging like 24, 25 points per game. Actually,
Yeah.
almost 30 points per game in one season. So getting that version, that's a good one. That's definitely a good choice there. Jerry Stackhouse. Love to see that. Okay. Now we're at my poor four position. Got some options here.
You have a
I,
pretty decent slate, actually.
I
Pretty
do.
decent group.
There's three guys I have in contention here. I can continue to go old. I can go with one of the best scorers of all time, Elvin Hayes, the big E. Elvin
Yeah.
Hayes. He was damn good back in the day. Like, he has like what, he had a couple seasons averaging 28, 27 points per game. That's not too bad.
Yeah.
I can go with friend of the show. He's
If that's what we
available.
want to call it.
Friend of the show, Julius Randle.
Yeah.
At this point, man, I mean, like, just jump on Julius. Come on, we can have a good conversation. But the guy I'm gonna end up going here doesn't really need the ball in his hands to create his own shot. He's played with ball dominant players in the past, and I think if anything, he's just gonna benefit more from having people like Oscar Robertson, having players like Earl Monroe playing around him. Bro, let me go with freaking the Rain Man, Sean Kemp. Let's go with
Okay.
Sean Kemp there. I mean,
Okay.
those days with the freaking, like, this guy was Blake Griffin before Blake Griffin. I'll say that in
Yeah.
terms of jumping ability and the fact that he doesn't really need the balls to succeed, especially because we already have a lot of guys that require the ball to play well. I think that Sean Kemp would be a good spot here, so I'm gonna put him over here.
Okay. I'm not mad at it. I mean, for your 4 spot, you definitely had a couple of different groups. And hilariously enough, like you said, if you wanted to go, if you wanted to stick old, there was still a lot of groups there. There was still a lot of people there too. And like you said, if you wanted to go newer, Julius Randle definitely not a bad pick if you're talking about overall prime numbers. So there
Shout
you
out to
go.
Lamar Odom too, who I was gonna choose here as
That's
well.
who I thought might have been like the guy
He
for
was,
you.
yeah, I know, I was thinking about it, but the way that he like operates, again, one of those guys that like benefits when you can like not run the offense through him, but like he has the ball in his hands and he's making decisions.
Yeah.
And like when you have Oscar Robertson, Earl Monroe already in your backcourt, you kind of want them making the decisions, and you want people at the other end finishing. That's what Sean Kemp will do. So I think I'll have him there. But
Yeah.
Jay, I mean, like, let's go through your rosters. Who do you have as your for your roster for the best November birthdays?
So for my November birthdays squad, the starting 5 is made up of Russell Westbrook at the 1, Avery Bradley at the 2, Jerry Stackhouse at the 3, Carl Anthony Towns at the 4, and Amari Stoudemire at the 5.
That team's gonna get buckets,
Hey man.
buckets.
Hey man.
That's crazy. I mean, I really like your roster. I think it's going to be a nice little contrast to my roster because the ones I have right here at the point guard, I'm going to be going with Earl the Pearl Monroe. At the 2, give me Big O, Oscar Robertson. At the 3, Metal Peace, aka Ron Artest.
Mhm.
At the 4, Sean Kemp, and at the center, Bill Walton. Gee, this
Man.
might be my first draft where I have not a single current day player.
Yeah, this is definitely one of the first times I think I've seen you go like completely more throwback style. Before we move off of the draft, what were some of the guys that maybe were like on your short list based off how things kind of shook out? Because I'm not gonna
Oh,
lie. Remember, I told you at the beginning of this wasn't a crazy group for us to draft from, but there were a few guys that got left off the list that definitely in a rerun of this, I probably would have like considered a little bit more.
bro, if anything, this is a lineup. This is a type of roster, like this type of like draft pool. You got to shout out the freaking the mid 2000s.
Yeah,
Corey Maggette was on my list. This man was
yeah,
an absolute bucket.
yeah,
Jamal Mashburn, people like, if you know, you know. Jamal Mashburn was that guy as a member of the New Orleans Hornets. Vin Baker, this
yeah.
man was this man was like a perennial, like a 4 or 5 time All Star in his prime. Andrew Bogut, former number 1 overall pick, starting center for a championship team. A lot of great choices. Nick Van Exel. I just seen a
Yeah,
video about freaking saying like who's like some of the players who you just can't guard 1-on-1. Nick Van Exel always seems to be on these guys' list. So like shout out
yeah.
to him. But I mean, yeah, those are a few guys I had in mind.
Yeah, I think Nick was definitely one of them. Another guy that I definitely was like considering was like OJ Mayo was just another
Which,
guy that I was considering
yeah,
at the two guard spot. He's one of those guys that's kind of like in the Tyreek Evans mode of like when the dude was on there, you was not messing with him. Like Memphis Grizzlies, OJ Mayo, different demon in his first like 2 years in the league. Obviously, things kind of tailed off in a really crazy way. Sneaky name that would have been dope for the four would have been Kenneth Fareed. If you know, you know.
he's one of my favorite players, man. Love the manimal.
Yeah, definitely that one. Ty Lawson would have been a good one at point guard. And obviously, if you want to make jokes, Carlos Boozer the loser would have been obviously a great four-man pick. Jack Sigma, by the way, too, was sneaky. I was still
Jack
picking
Sigma
him at
was a sneaky
four.
one. He was
Carl
a
Anthony
sneaky.
Towns wasn't an option, obviously. I think Jack Sigma as like a mini stretch four, stretch five would have been like a solid throwback pick that would have been like, the real old head fans would like really respect that kind of pick because
Yeah,
Jack Sigma was one of those ugly. The jump shot looked ugly, but that Joker went in on automatic.
yeah. And also, this month had Jonte Porter. Like everyone's winning, even when they lose.
Oh my
Even when they
gosh.
lose.
Oh
Look,
my
man,
god.
let us know what you guys think down below in terms of these teams. Who has a better team, my team or Jay's team? Who came out with the better November lineup? Oh boy, Jonte Porter. Bet the under, boys. Bet the under. All right,
Crazy.
Jay. We are now at the final segment of the show. It is time for the weekly quiz. And Jay, like I mentioned for you, I've had this quiz waiting over the last week. And shout out to the guys at Numbers on the Board because this was something from like one of their quizzes I've seen recently. Jay, I've tested your Bulls knowledge for quite some time now.
Oh god.
So I'm gonna give you I have like 12, I think I have like 10 to 15 names, depending how much I want to go through, but I might just stick
Okay.
with 10. I want to give you a name, and you're gonna have to tell me, Jay, did they play for the Bulls or not? Just a
Oh
simple yes or no.
god. Okay, I've seen this subject on there before.
Just a simple
Jesus.
yes or no. You don't have to overthink it. You don't have to think of players yourself. I'm just gonna give you some names and tell me, did he play for the Chicago Bulls? Yes or no? You ready?
Okay. All right.
All right, Jay. First name on the list. Shout out to this guy because he ended up on my draft team. Ron Artest. Did he play for the Bulls?
Yeah.
He did play for the Bulls. He started off his
Yeah.
career with the Chicago Bulls. Got drafted
Yeah.
there. First 2 years over there with the Chicago Bulls.
Yeah.
Very, very nice. Gonna give you a name to start up with. Next one. Rip Hamilton. Did he play for the
Yes.
Bulls?
Yes. 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 Used to spam him with John Salmons as part of the backcourt. Yep.
Yep. Rip Hamilton was a member of the Chicago Bulls. 2 for 2, Jay. Okay, so we might need to do a few extra names. But that's cool. That's cool. All right, next guy on the list. Darvin Ham. Did he play
Darvin,
for the Bulls?
what? Do I remember? Okay, first of all, do I remember Darvin Ham is the question, like as a basketball player. Let's
We
start
all know
there.
what he could do as a coach. Do you remember him in a Bulls jersey?
I still only remember him as a Buck, so I'm gonna say no.
That is the first on the list. Darvin Ham
Yeah.
was not a member of the Chicago Bulls. Next name, though, Adrian Griffin, another former Milwaukee Bucks
Mm,
assistant. Was
that's
he
nasty.
was he a member of the
What?
Chicago Bulls?
I don't know, man. That I feel like I feel like if he played for us, he wore a nasty number. He couldn't have been good. He couldn't have been good. I'm gonna say he did play for us because I don't think you would give me back to back former Bucks guys and both of them not have played for us.
He did play for the Chicago Bulls.
Okay,
And you're
all
talking
right.
about a horrible number. This
Mm.
man played with the number 44.
Oh, that's atrocious. What did he play? Did he play power forward?
Small forward, power forward, yeah.
That's atrocious. That's atrocious.
Actually,
All
small
right.
forward shooting guard, small forward shooting guard
Shoot,
there.
shooting guard with 44 is crazy. What is he? Keon dueling? This is insane. That's insane. That's insane. That's insane work.
Shout out,
Anyway.
his second most tenured team in the Chicago Bulls, where he averaged 2.3 points per game. Shout out to Adrian Griffin, man. Shout out to him.
Wow. All right. You
All
learn
right,
something new every day.
next guy,
Wow.
next guy on the list, Kendall Gill. Was he a member of the Chicago Bulls?
Kendall Gill. Oh my gosh. I remember you for a team that has nothing to do with Chicago, bro. And that's the part that's killing me because I feel like, why do I feel like he's played on our team? But I don't remember him for what I'm thinking of. I don't remember him for what I'm thinking of. I remember Kendall Gill as a Hornet. That's it. But I feel like that's let the wheels turn. Come on now. Come on now. Come on now. He feels like a Antonio Blakeney type for my type of teams. Obviously, this is an older player, so obviously not. But like, I'm gonna say yeah, man. I'm gonna say yeah. I think he did. It might have been a short stint, but I'm gonna say yeah.
Kendall Gill was a member of the Chicago Bulls. Played one season for the team. Also was
Okay.
a also wasn't a, also is one of those guys who played for his hometown team.
Yeah.
Went to the college, went to Illinois, was born in Chicago, Illinois. Got to play one season with the hometown, so which is great for
Yeah.
him. All right, next guy on the list, Vladimir Radmanovich. Did he play as a Chicago Bull?
Jalen, think of all the long last names you've ever seen on a Chicago Bulls jersey. That's that's what I'm at. That's where I'm at right now. Is dang. I'm gonna say no, man. I'm gonna say no.
And this is your first strike. Vladimir
Ah,
Radmanovich was
I
a member of the
dang
Chicago
it.
Bulls. His last
Oh,
season in the NBA, playing 25 games with the Chicago
damn it.
Bulls.
I wasn't even confident in that one either. Dang
Yeah.
it.
Because you can imagine him kind of in a Bulls jersey. You
Yeah,
could
I'm
kind
trying to
of.
think. I was trying to what number did he wear?
Vladimir Radmanovich played, it's an ugly number, 77.
Damn it. Okay. All
shout,
right.
shout to him, though. He was a, Laker great at the back in the day,
Yeah,
Vladimir
yeah, yeah.
Radmanovich. Also, shout to
Jeez.
him. Shout to Sonics too. Shout to Sonics. All right, next guy on the list, Drew Gooden. Did he play for
Oh
the
yeah.
Chicago Bulls?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, that came in with the quickness. Yes, he was actually a staple. I didn't realize. I knew he played for the Bulls. I didn't realize he played 4 freaking years with the Chicago
Yeah,
Bulls.
no, he was
Yeah.
he was the Carlos Boozer clone. Yeah, yeah, yeah. 100%.
Yo, freaking elbow jumpers for days with
Yeah,
these
bro.
two.
The
Elbow
the mid range corner pocket was nasty
on
work.
lock
Nasty.
with Drew Gooden and then Carlos Boozer. You had that area of the court on lockdown for a decade.
Yeah, man. Yeah, 15 footer was automatic basically. You at least 14 shots a game was coming from, brother. You just knew.
100%. All right, next guy on the list. Mention him in the draft trivia. Nick Van Exel. Did he play for the Chicago
Did
Bulls?
Nick the Quick play for us? I feel like I would know that. Like if Nick Van Exel played for the Bulls, I feel like I'd be certain. So I'm gonna say no.
He was not a member of the Chicago Bulls.
Yeah.
Nice. I don't. I mean, he was a bit of a journeyman near the end, so potentially could have had to stop
Yeah.
there. But
True,
yeah, Nick
true.
Nick, Nick Van Exel did not play for the Chicago Bulls. All right, next guy. This I felt like this is I felt like this was perfect because this guy recently just retired.
Okay.
DJ Augustine recently
Yes,
retired.
DJ
DJ
did play.
Augustine.
Yes, DJ was in the backcourt. Shout out to the poster in my room, man. Shout out to the poster in my room, man. Him, Aaron Brooks. Come on, man.
Man, he was a member of the Chicago Bulls.
Come on, man.
And
He's all
funnily,
over the Midwest. Played for Indiana too. Like, come on, man. He knows the vibes. He knows the vibes.
yes. Oh, yeah. That's crazy because in that same season, um, he was like he was a member of the Toronto Raptors at the beginning of that season, and then we cut him. and then he ended up on the Bulls.
Oh.
And in that 30-game stretch, he averaged like 14 points a game. He was actually solid.
Low-key hooping.
Loki Hoop and DJ Augustine, yes,
Yeah.
made it on this list. Okay, couple more guys here.
Okay.
Larry Hughes. Did he?
Larry.
Was he a member of?
Larry. Where I'm picturing you and where I'm trying to see you are not the same. But I'm gonna go out on a limb and I'm gonna say Larry did play for us.
He did play for you guys for 2 seasons. Was a midseason trade from the Cavs, actually, funnily enough, the year after they made the finals. He ended
Wow.
up on the Bulls and averaged 12 points a game exactly in his 2 years. Like those 2 years that he
Okay.
played for you guys, 12 points a game per season. Great. Okay, couple more guys left.
All right.
Lindsey Hunter. Did he play for the Chicago Bulls?
Yeah. Yeah.
Lindsey Hunter did play for your Chicago
Yeah.
Bulls. I mean, near the end of his career, but he did finish it out over there.
Yeah. Actually was like a solid backup point guard for a little while.
Yeah. Still obviously known more for his days for the Detroit Pistons. He played like basically his whole career there, but ended up with the
Yeah.
Chicago Bulls.
Yeah.
Next guy, Ish Smith. Was he a member of the Chicago
Ish
Bulls?
Smith. That's a sneaky one, TV, because you know he's played for like 8,000 teams. Wow. But you know what?
Did he sign a 10-day? Was he an Exhibit 10
Dang, that's
player?
a great question. Dang. Did Ish play for did Ish play? Nah. Nah. I don't think that's one of the mini jerseys hanging up in the basement man cave. I don't think so.
So Ish Smith, no?
Nah.
You're correct. Out of the 11 teams
Okay.
he's played for, the
Yeah,
Bulls wasn't one
man.
of
I
them.
don't think that's in the basement man cave, bro. He got a couple of jerseys signed up in the rafters of his room, man. But I don't think a Bulls one was one of them.
No, he was not. But yeah, I was trying to throw you off there. A potential
Yeah.
10-day, an Exhibit 10 could have
Dang.
been a part of it.
That was a good one though, because he's definitely been around the block. So if you don't do the math in your head, like he could be a dude, you could just strength for real.
Yeah. But final guy,
Dang.
Jay. We're on the final guy.
Okay.
And we're going to go with Brandon Sampson. Was he a member of the Chicago Bulls?
Oh my. You know what's funny? That's so crazy, by the way, because he's a guy that I feel like, and this sounds really crazy, but by the way, I think this is a guy that I've heard about recently, which is actually kind of nasty because I don't even remember the context. I think I was watching something. No. No. That's not true. I was looking at something that was related to like horrible rebounding stats or something like that.
Mhm.
He did play for us. And you know what's funny? You know what's funny? What did you say Vladimir's number was?
77 or sorry,
And
40, is it 77 or something? Yeah.
yeah. You said his was 77. Who's the player that you said wore 44 for us?
I think it was Adrian Griffin, I
I
think.
think it was Griffin, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I think Sampson wore 44 too,
He did.
didn't he?
Yeah.
Oh my, see, come on, bro. Come on, bro. Talk to me nice, bro. Cause like I'm so mad that Vladimir one I got wrong. I should have went with my gut, dude.
Yeah.
Because that Samson one, I don't even remember what the context around it was. Now I have to check my Google history because I swear to you, I just peeped this. Like I don't know how recent it was, but like I just saw something about Buddy like a little while ago. Not like super recent, but like recent though. You know what I mean?
No, I mean, this is crazy. The only reason I brought him up is because he played 14 whole games in his NBA career,
I
and he
mean,
played them all with
true.
the Bulls,
Look,
and then
man.
then fade into oblivion,
Look,
nowhere to be
man.
seen again.
At the end of the day, look, this is one of my things. This I totally remember. Yo. Can I tell you something crazy? I
Yeah.
really remember this guy more so because of LSU. I think that's what it is. I think that's what it is because I think let me go back to the stats real quick because now I got it. Now we're going down the rabbit hole because like I swear to you, I just saw something about Buddy recently. Where
It's
where is this man? Can I get this man's stats on speed dial real quick? I swear to you, because he was a hooper though. See, 8 points per game. I remember that part, but he was a hooper. What am I contexting? I don't know why this
yeah,
man popped into my head. I looked at the LSU stats and they're not crazy either. I'm trying to think of where this man popped up. I'll have to if I can find like the old link because I'm telling you I googled this within like the last month. It was something related to it. And his name popped up. It was Bulls related. It was guards
yeah,
related, and I don't remember what the heck it was. Maybe it was nasty as numbers. It was something
yes,
related to like guard numbers or something like that. I totally forget what it
yeah,
was, but I just saw his name recently. Sorry, I know I'm holding up the
yeah.
podcast,
It's
but
okay. No,
the
it's
fact that that man's name popped into my head that quickly is crazy. Because you're right, he literally had like the definition of a cup of coffee in the league, and it was with the Bulls. I remember.
yeah.
Crazy.
2019, great year for the Bulls, wasn't it, man? Just a great
He
year for
played
sure.
for the I think he played in the G League for like the Blue Coats or
Yeah.
something.
Maybe possibly. I didn't get his G
Yeah,
League
I
stats,
don't
but
know.
yeah,
Yeah, it
but
was
yeah,
something like
crazy.
that. I don't know.
Honestly, like the fact that you got this like right away, I was like, okay, I've never heard of this man in my entire life. I just came upon him on this list.
Oh
But yeah,
man.
I think Jake got I think like what I think 12 for 13 or something like that, or like something
Yeah,
like
it was just the Vladimir one, bro. I should have went with my gut. I knew that man. I knew that man played for us. In my gut, I knew it, but
yeah.
hey,
Shout
it
out,
is what
shout
it
out to
is.
you, shout out to you, and yeah, let us know what other quizzes you want to see in the future. Do you want to see Jay get tested poor as a Bulls fan? Do you want to? We might have a guest on the pod soon. We might have to bring back one of those other good ones too. So those ones are gonna come back soon. Jay, you're gonna need to redeem us after that last performance.
No, for real.
Yes. All right, but yeah, let us know what you guys think down below about the quiz and also the draft if you have any other more ideas. Jay, we've reached the end of a fantastic episode. Thank you guys for watching. What do you have to tell these people before we have to sign out?
Man, I gotta be honest with you, dude. I'm I don't love the injuries. You know, you look at the group of people that have went down just in the early going. Chet Holmgren recently went down. It feels like the entire New Orleans Pelicans team was on the ER. Paulo Banchero, Kevin Durant recently went down. Tyrese Maxey. Like you hate to see this slate of guys go down, but the amount of like role player level dudes who have like really shined in the beginning of the league is something that I just truly love, dude. I just truly
Yes.
love that guys across the board that like are just typically not gonna get crazy amount of shine are not just playing, but playing well. Like Ty Jerome's name came up on the podcast today. You know,
Mhm.
Karis LeVert has been good. We talked about some of the rookies. We brought up Ryan Dunn last week. This week we stepped into our bag a little bit more by talking about, Jared McCain. I I think we said this before the season started, and I kind of theorized this before the season started about one of the things we learned in the last two seasons is that the importance of depth, especially in this new era of the second apron, is going to just be so important in team building. You see that the Warriors, Steve Kerr
Yeah.
embracing the idea of going 11 to 12 deep. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
the ability to do so. The fact that the Cleveland Cavaliers are 13 and 0 and they play a legit 10 to 11 man rotation. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This season is truly shaping out to be one of those where like the concept of having a legitimate 8 to 10 man roster of guys who can really play basketball and the importance of competency in this league is encapsulating itself so much in this beginning portion of the season. And I love it because we love star power. We truly do. But what makes this league great is that there are guys beyond our number, 1 through 25 best players in the league that create championship level rosters. And this early portion of the season is starting to shake down where we're seeing a lot of different guys that are stepping up in that area. And really showing us like why this is like the best league in basketball. Like we're seeing it across the board that like just there's just an amazing talent pool start top to bottom across the league for a lot of teams this year.
No, 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 for sure. This is the best league in the world. There's a reason why whenever a door closes, another one opens. It's always a revolving door here in the NBA. And there's just too much talent to the point where we've been discussing even adding more teams to the league and all that, just because it's just too much to even handle. And you've seen these guys gain their opportunity when these star players go down and making the most of it. You love to see it. You love to see the game grow. You love to see that these guys gain their opportunities and actually take advantage of it. So shout out to them. But yeah, great episode. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure you check out all of the links down in the description below. But yeah, we're gonna be back next week for another episode. It was a great one today. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you have a fantastic day. This is Jay. This is TV. We're signing out. Peace.